What is up, everyone? It's finally time we talk about the C4 Corvette. Now, I know it's not everybody's favorite car, but I can tell you right now, there's a lot of value in these cars, and monetarily, there's going to be value in about 10 years. Right now, I think they're where the Fox Body Mustang used to be about 20 years ago. C4 Corvettes have a majorly broad range of uses, anywhere from a $500, yes, you can get them for that, beater car just to have fun with, all the way up to a $50,000 or $60,000 ZR1 or Grand Sport convertible stuck in a collection somewhere. They're used as economy cars, believe it or not, and they're also even used as LS swap candidates. They're great for racing, and you won't believe what kind of car you can get if you just take the time to look at one. Now, that being said, I'm going to take you guys out like I did on the C3 and show you what you can find on a C4 Corvette, how to buy them, what to look for, and then we'll close with what I think they're going to do in the market and how things will go for them in the future. Here we go. Okay, today our subject car at hand is my 1987 Corvette convertible. I've had this car since 2007. I absolutely love the car. Wouldn't trade it for anything. This is the earlier style Corvette. You can see the black unpainted belt strip, this type of front end, and then an inverted rear end. That's basically what the 84 to 90 Corvette looked like on the outside. Now, first thing we want to talk about is structural problems with these cars. They didn't really have any. These cars were very well rust-proofed, very well done. The frames on these really don't rust. They're very well coated. GM used a very high-quality steel. They welded them very well, very precision welding. And honestly, the only things that you could check for on these cars are fuel lines and brake lines. Look those over. Those, like any other car, are typical. They will rust. The one thing I've even read on the forums that people even just remotely talk about every now and then is on the driver's side where the battery is. There's a little compartment underneath the hood. You take the little vented section off, your battery's right there. A leaky battery will drip down on the frame, and at most it'll just take some of the paint off. That's pretty much it. Now we're going to talk about a couple things that plague these cars. The big issues on these cars are the electronics. Now, my battery's dead thanks to an Ohio winter, but I'm going to show you something. You can see the screen over there on the dash. That is an LCD screen. They were LCD from 84 through 96. It did not matter what year, but they were updated in 1990 to accommodate the ZR1. Now, the problem with those screens, the earlier cars are more prone to going out, but at least they had the odometer in the top right corner. That was a plus for these. If they go out, you're out a couple $100. If they go out in a 90 or newer car, you're out a couple $100 more, and the digital odometer has to match. Now, it's typically controlled by the computer, but sometimes they get a little shaky, so you got to be careful. If yours is going out, you want to have it rebuilt, because if somebody's looking at the car, or if you're looking at a car and it keeps going in and out, you really don't know what kind of miles it has. A couple other things in here. These cars were very luxurious for the time. They had a Bose stereo, cassette player, of course, as you see, power antenna, power everything, power seats, 6-7 different ways, lots of interior lights, all kinds of stuff that could go wrong. So when you're looking at these cars, go through all the electronics, go through the climate control system. Mine works perfect. Literally, these cars were way ahead of their time. All the switches up there in the top panel that you see, these things control temperature and all kinds of stuff, fuel economy, you name it. You can see everything in that little screen right there next to the switches. These cars were very, very advanced, so make sure you go through all those electronics. Okay, under the hood of these cars, I want to talk about one more thing electronical, then we're going to move on to the motor. As you can see, the headlights are facing at you. Like the C3, this has pop-up headlights, but unlike the C3, these are electronic, and they kind of flip. They rotate, so they'll flip upward outside the car. One thing you want to do is definitely make sure these work fine. Typically, these cars are known for what's called a runaway headlight motor. You'll shut them off, and they'll keep going and going and going until they either burn out or give up. So definitely check those out. So GM put 5 different engines in the C4 Corvette. In 1984, they had the 1-year-only C4 engine of the Crossfire injection motor that carried over from the 82. There was no 83 Corvette. GM will tell you all kinds of random things, but it was because of a lot of safety and problematic issues. So 84 was the first year of the C4. Sadly, that motor made even less horsepower at 205. It was quickly replaced in 85 with a motor like you see here. This is a tune-port motor. Next to the LS engine, this is probably the most reliable fuel-injected motor built in existence. I swear to you. These things can go for an infinite number of miles. They take very, very little maintenance. I've never had a problem with the fuel injection on them. They're great. This car specifically is an 87, which in that year GM put in the roller rocker setup in these. So from 87 to 91, that was a little bit better motor. So if you're looking for a car like that you want to just get every little horsepower out of, there you go. In 92, GM upped their game with the LT1 300 horsepower motor. That car was 300 horse, 350 foot-pounds of torque. They were a great motor from all the way from 92 to 96. The LT4 for the Grand Sport came out in 96, and also the Collector's Edition, and a couple other cars got them. They were all 6-speed cars, though. That was 330 horse, 350 torque. Then in 90, going back a little bit, there was the LT5. Now that was the ZR1 motor. That car started out 375 horsepower, and in 93 it went to 405. They were monsters of an engine. They were built in collaboration with Mercury Marines and McLaren. Excellent motors. The only dual overhead cam motor to this date, I guarantee you the C8 will have one, but to this date, the only dual overhead cam motor. They were great, but man, if they break, you're in for a world of hurt. One thing I will tell you on the LT series motors, of course that was an LT5, but the LT1 and LT4, you definitely need to make sure that the water pump is not leaking on the OptiSpark. If it is, that's expensive. It's going to be very expensive. If you're looking at a car that an owner says was done, ask him for paperwork. You want that because it gets a little costly. One thing we definitely want to look at on these cars is the transmission. Now, the earlier automatics, which I have here, were 700 R4s, and the later ones were the 4L60. But if you wanted a manual in your C4 Corvette, from 84 to 88, you ended up with a Doug Nash 4+3 transmission. Basically, it's a 4-speed with 3 overdrives, kind of like a gear bender's. What it does is in second, third, and fourth gear, you flip a lever, and it goes first gear, second overdrive, third overdrive, fourth overdrive. You definitely want to drive one of those cars to make sure, one, that you like it, and two, that it all works, because if it doesn't, you're going to be out a pretty penny. Now, when it comes to the update, in 89 through 96, they had a 6-speed in these cars. Now, the one thing you want to know about those is they also had a solenoid that forced the car into a higher gear for economic purposes. You can bypass that. There's a kit for that. You'll want to get that because it's going to annoy the crap out of you. But those are your transmission options. Now, in closing, I'm going to go over just a little bit about these cars. The ones you want to buy if you're looking for something as an investment grade are in the early 80s, you want a convertible like this. The coupes really don't bring as much. Or you want something like the Callaway twin turbo car. Those were awesome. The 88 35th anniversary car was nice. The 90s brought you things like the 40th anniversary Ruby Red car, of course the ZR1s, the Grand Sports, the 96 Collector's Edition cars. Grand Sports, especially with the red interior, bring premium dollars. But if you're really just looking as an overall or general way of buying one of these for profit, buy like the C3s, buy rare colors, buy low miles, buy rare options. That's really what sells these cars right now. If you're wanting an LS swap candidate, go for an 84. That's one of the best cars to grab because they're so cheap, they're so easy to put a motor in, and honestly, you can have so much fun for very little. If you're wanting an economy car, get a tune-port car. Get an 85 to 91. Seriously, these things get incredible fuel mileage. They're easy to maintain, just about as easy as anything you could ever put on the road. They're very reliable. You'll have a blast. And if you go through somebody like NCM Insurance, National Corvette Museum, or even Haggerty, they're extremely cheap to insure. So definitely look at one of those. Now, if you're wanting a car just to turn into a vet cart, buy anything you can dirt cheap. That's going to be your best bet. As far as the market value on these go, I think in 10 years, the ZR1 Corvette's going to be somewhere around $60,000. Definitely achievable at that point. The convertible cars, they're going to hit $15,000, maybe even $20,000, just depending on the miles and how they are. The coupes, they're going to be down there for a while, but as these cars get turned into vet carts, parted out for their better quality siblings, and people start shipping them around and looking for low mileage ones, they're going to get harder to find, and kind of like the Fox Body Mustang, they'll come up in value. It's going to be a while, but they'll eventually get there. Guys, this video I know wasn't nearly as in-depth as the C3. These cars really don't need to be. These cars are pretty well done for themselves, and they're pretty easy to find a good one. So take care. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.